family law. There is no law that says what a fitness or capacity to parent is. But there are bodies of literature, research literature that tells you what that is. You have to know those and apply those to the examination of the person so that can be kind of extrapolated to the court's decision and laws. Michigan has the Child Custody Act. These are factors the court has to consider in order to award parenting time and custody, mostly custody. Sometimes I will be charged with doing a forensic psychological evaluation that's called a custody evaluation. And in a custody evaluation, I evaluate mom, I evaluate dad, and I evaluate all the kids. And in a custody evaluation, I have to weigh in on these factors. Most of these factors, I'll say, the evaluation was not specific to address that factor. But can I address A, the love, affection, and other emotional ties existing between parties involved and the child? I can weigh in on that. And I might weigh in and say, mom has a closer relationship than dad does. But they have to consider all these factors. E, this is a weird one, the moral fitness of the parents involved. As a scientific-based psychologist, when you say moral to me, I get a little nervous, okay? But what you have to do is when you think about morals, and you think about how does this person's sort of moral fiber impact the child. So for example, I see lots of people, well, do I say lots? Yeah. People are swingers, sexually open lifestyles. People who, I saw a couple people who have adult-oriented businesses, sexual-oriented businesses. Does this make you a bad parent? Well, you say, no, it depends. You just got to be in your bedroom. Whatever's in the bedroom stays, that's your business. But one example I had was, this gets gross, sorry. I had divorced, this was a divorced family, and there was a custody fight. And mom and new stepdad, I hope you don't know these people, would take the children, age 6, 7, and 9, to conventions. The convention they took the children to was Season's Beatings. It was kind of a cute little flyer. It's around Christmas time. Instead of Season's Greetings, it was Season's Beatings. It was a bondage conference. Do you take your 9-year-old to a bondage conference? Would I say it's immoral? I wouldn't say that, but I'd say it's probably not typical to sort of the moral standards of our culture, right? Where this gets really funky is nudists, right? I've had nudist cases where dad takes all the kids to the nudist colony. Mom freaks out. I want to change custody. Okay? So this can get really tricky and really slippery. Now this one, G, obviously I can weigh in quite a bit. The mental and physical health of the parties involved, right? But some of these, so the permanence as a family unit of the existing or proposed custodial home or homes, I can weigh in a little bit on that, but typically I'll say, no, they both have established residence and they both plan on staying in the residence. Okay. All right. Am I getting your attention again? Right? I brought section and perversion in and everybody's paying attention now, right? Okay. Just to expand for a minute, some of you may have been involved in these kind of situations growing up, right? Did your parents fight over custody? When I do a capacity parent, I say, whoa. I say, does this person have any mental illness, major psychological problems, or intellectual deficits, or active substance abuse problems? Do they have any problems? And if they have problems, how does it affect their ability to be a parent? So those become the basic questions in these capacity to parent evals. As I talked about in the lecture, in my state, Michigan, where I work and practice, the law is very specific about the factors that the court needs to examine and the evidence under those factors in order to make a decision about where the child in a divorce situation will primarily live. Some states are very specific in their statutes. Others aren't as specific as Michigan. But still, there tends to be guidelines where forensic psychologists could be utilized in the courts. Now, in the United States, we have actually developed a nice, actually good body of research literature on children's adjustment to divorce. And I have to say, in the past 10 years, a lot of the family courts that I've been involved with, or that I've testified in, have really utilized forensic psychologists in a very good way to meet the best interest of the children when there are disputes over what's called custody and parenting time here, or where the children are going to live and what parent is going to make decisions about the child. Many of the judges are informed. I was involved 15 years ago doing a lot of training with judges about what that research says. One thing that does vary sometimes in application of forensic psychology in family court and in the court's decisions is there may be particular cultural factors that kind of tether the courts or influence the courts. So for example, where I work in Grand Rapids, Michigan, most of the judges know the research and attempt to apply what would be called an equal shared parenting, or a 50% custody to the children. And that would be that the children spend an equal amount of time living in mother's home versus father's home. Typically, if the children get to 7, 8, 9 years old, there's a model that's applied in this region of week on, week off. You live Sunday night to the next Sunday night at mom's house, then you live at dad's house from Sunday night to the next Sunday night, and the kids will go back and forth. And believe it or not, the research here really talks about that type of situation with children older than 8, 9, 10 is ideal as long as the co-parents, or the parents of the children, are able to get along and communicate well. There are other jurisdictions where the courts and the judges, and really the culture there, may be more established in the idea that after a divorce, the children will primarily live with mother and mom will be the primary caretaker, but dad will have some parenting times. So that can vary, but as the research becomes more and more known to family court judges, there tends to be more of an orientation towards attempting to do an equal parenting time situation. In fact, even with the young children, so for example, 2 and 3-year-olds, the courts here may decide a parenting schedule that includes live 4 days in mom's house, then 3 days in dad's house, and back to mom's house for 3 days, and back to dad's house for 4 days. And it's really based on the research that children at that age could possibly develop some anxieties if they're away from one of their attachment figures for more than 3 or 4 days. So from my perspective, I am pleased when I see the court apply good scientific research. Now, in my research, trying to determine how often forensic psychologists are involved in custody and parenting time conflicts and divorce situations in the UK, Australia, and Canada, I didn't find much, to be frank with you. Canada is similar to the United States. I'm not quite sure how forensic psychologists, or if forensic psychologists, are utilized in family courts for divorce situations in the UK or Australia. If you know of a good resource, please email it to me. I would be very interested in looking at it.